Hi, my name's Aaron. Today, I'm going to demo off a SwiftUI application that was originally written for MongoDB Atlas Device Sync and has been converted to Couchbase Lite with Couchbase Capella App Services. If you are a SwiftUI developer and want to see this app in action, stick around. The repo for this can be found in Couchbase Labs and in the video description of this video. To run this application, you need to pull the code down. You can get the code from using the code button in GitHub and going through and grabbing the URL here by HTTPS, CLI, SSH, or whatever version of how you want to get code. Inside of the actual README of the repo, there is a link to how to clone it with the git command. Once you have the source code downloaded, you can run it. However, you do need to modify the code a little bit. And this particular code requires Couchbase Capella be set up prior to running the application. There's a video in the description that will go through and walk you through how to set up Couchbase Capella. However, if you haven't done that yet and you don't want to watch the video, you also can use the capella.md file. This file has a list of step-by-step directions that explain how to set up Couchbase Capella with a free trial account and set up a bucket scope and collection along with app services and an app endpoint for syncing information to this mobile application. One of the last parts of this directions will show you how to go through and get the endpoint connection URL, which we then have to modify a config file for. I'll walk you through this step real quickly so that you can go through and get that, but however, you will need to do all this step prior to updating the config file. I have Couchbase Capella open here. I'm just logged in under the operational tab. This is where you go by default. I'm going to click the link to app service here to do app service. This should bring up our app endpoints for that app service. From there, I'm going to click the task link. Once I'm in the task link, I can click the connection tab. The connections tab will have a list of the public connection to this particular app endpoint. You can use the little icon here to copy that to your clipboard, and now we can modify the code. To open the code, I'm going to use Xcode to open that repo that I cloned. So I'm going to go to Xcode, click the Open Existing Project. And now I have to navigate to my code. My code exists in a developers folder, under the developers folder, in a Couchbase folder, my rounds folder, and then in here you can see CBL template app SwiftUI ToDo. Inside of here we have a app.xcode project file, and this is the folder that we would definitely want to open up our app from to get the Xcode project open. So I can just click the open button, and this should go ahead and open up the application. Once the app is open in Xcode, we need to modify the Capella config file in order to add our app endpoint into there. So you can see here, I'm going to go into my endpoint URL here, and in here you'll have a bunch of X's. You want to go through and paste in the value that you got from Capella into the endpoint URL field. And this should be, don't use mine, use yours, whatever you have from there. And that's all that should be needed in order to run this. Now, of course, you need to select a simulator. I am using a iPhone 16 Pro Max for my simulator. You can use whatever simulators you have installed, and you can just hit the play button, and this should go through, put a build onto your simulator and run it. So you can see here, the build's now running on my simulator. It takes a few seconds to start up SwiftUI, and I should go through and have that code put onto the device. Now that the app is up and running, I can go through and give you a demo of it. I'm going to start by minimizing Xcode and stopping the running of this because I want to show off Capella with my app to kind of see it. So in order to do that, I'm going to kind of take Capella here and minimize it a little bit so that I can get both my iPhone and Capella on the same screen during our recording here. So I'm just going to finagle this a little bit so that we can get this together. There we go. In order to see data in Capella, I'm going to use the data tools feature. To get back to the main home screen of Capella, I can click the Capella logo in the upper left-hand corner. And now I'm going to click my cluster, which is called To-Do. From my To-Do cluster, I'm going to click the Data Tools tab. Once I'm in the Data Tools tab, you can see here I'm in the Document screen. I need to switch my bucket from being the travel sample bucket to the To-Do bucket that I built to store documents. Once I do that, I just need to make sure that my scope is set to data and my tasks collection is selected under the collection pull down. Finally, you can see here, I have a limit of 10 documents. I could change this to 20, for example. This will show me 20 documents, but right now I only have one document sitting inside of this bucket in this scope and collection, and that is a sync info. This is part of the app services metadata storage of like how app services work. Now that I have our documents up over here and I can look at those, I can demo off showing the application and how it works. I'm going to open the application again from my simulator. You can see here there is an icon, SwiftUI ToDo. And I'm going to log into the application. Now, to note, the first thing is if you log in with the wrong password, it won't work. You're going to get an error that says the password's wrong. So you can see here, I'm getting invalid credentials that says, hey, the credentials are not correct. If you don't change the URL, you're going to also get an error that says that it couldn't reach the URL. That means that you haven't updated the URL in the config file that I showed you earlier in Xcode. But I'm going to go ahead and log it properly with the username and password. Now you can see out of the box, I have no data. That's perfectly fine because that's how this application works. When you first install it, there should be no tasks available. Now, what is this application? Well, it's a very simple to-do application that was converted from MongoDB to Couchbase Capella with Couchbase Lite for the database backend and SwiftUI. Inside this application, there's an icon here to log out. There's an icon to basically over here, and what this does is this gives you the ability to stop or start sync, and this emulates the app being in offline mode. We have a little plus sign here, and this is going to allow you the ability to add new tasks to the application. And then finally, we have this little switch here. This switch allows you to see either your tasks only, or if you turn it, you can see everyone's tasks. And so this is going to change the filtering, or in Couchbase Lite, the query that we run to get the tasks back from the database. So to start out with this, let's go through and add a document into the database, basically a to-do task, so we can see this in action. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this task 100 for our first task, and I'm going to go ahead and click save. Now, Capella doesn't automatically refresh a screen. So in order to see changes, you need to go through and click the documents again. And now you'll see, look at this, we have a new document. And we can see here that document is task 100, matches over here. It has an owner ID in it, a document ID of ID, and this is a UUID. Converted over to a string, and then is completed set to false. Is completed is whether or not the task has been completed, and what will happen is when that is set to true, there should be a check mark that draws. Now, we sync this document from the mobile device to Capella. We can see the sync from Capella over to the mobile device by modifying that document. So I'm going to go into here into the document, and this is a document editor, so I can change the is completed from false to true. And when I do that, that should update the device. And you can see here, almost instantaneous in the app, we now have a checkbox because that task is now completed. This is the UI of the application. Let's go through and add a couple more documents. So I'm going to add task 200 and task 300. And you can see here now we have 3 different tasks. If I go to get documents, we should also see those 3 tasks now inside of Capella. And if we were to minimize or kind of make the screen bigger so we can see more information, I was looking to see if maybe we could see the title, but unfortunately, we're gonna have to click on each one of these to see that. Like you see, here's task 100, this is task 200, and down here it should be task 300 then. Okay, so the next thing I wanna show off is that we can not only change the checkbox here, but we should also be able to change the task title, for example. So I'm gonna go through and say this is task 400 instead of 300. And when that happens, you'll see that 400 changed over from 300. It was, once again, almost instantaneous. Now, when I click the little switch here to see tasks for everyone, you'll notice that not much really changes because we haven't logged on as a different user. So let's go through and do that. So I'm gonna click the logo button, and instead of demo 1, I'm gonna use the demo 2 user that we created earlier in the Capella video. I'm gonna click the login button. You'll see here, right now, it doesn't have any tasks, and that's perfectly fine because, like I said, the default state when you start the application is that each user doesn't start with tasks. However, if I were to click the little switch here, we should see, now we see that these tasks are the original tasks that the demo 1 user made. On top of that, you'll see here you can read the task, but you can't update them because there is a business rule in the application that states you only can update your tasks. So let's go through and add some tasks for the demo 2 user. So we'll say these are tasks 1000, and we'll add maybe a 2000 or 3000. Now we have our demo 2 user tasks. And if we were to go through and get documents, we can go through and see in Capella, we see more documents now. If we click on these, we'll notice that the owner now is demo2 at example.com instead of demo1. If you want to filter their documents inside of Capella, there's an easy way to do this right from the documents page. Under the filter by, you can use the SQL++ where and just simply say the field, which we know happens to be owner ID, equal to, and I can say demo2 at example.com, for example. And if I were to filter that document, you'll see here now I only have the 3 documents that are showing up on the screen here. And if I were to click on each one of those, you'd see those. Now, we've already done this before, but we could do it again just to show off that if we change the document, we should see that in real time. As you see here, we instantly saw that change. We go back out to here, we can see that if I were to change that back, then maybe say is not completed, false. Even though we're showing somebody else's task in our task, so it's a different query, the syncing works the same exact way regardless. Okay, so that's pretty cool and neat. Now, the next thing I want to show off is what happens if the app were to go offline and we were to make some changes. So for example, I'm going to click the little button here that says, and you'll see there's a UI change that says this is now offline, so there's no syncing going to happen. So you notice here, we had our task 4000 here, right? And that 4000, I'm going to through and change the name to 5000. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to do. And we'll notice here that the change doesn't happen because we're offline, right? So even though we changed task 4000, 5000, it's not going to happen. I'm also going to complete task 3000. So now I have a change that's happened on the mobile device that hasn't happened in Capella. Now, if we were to go look at that task in, let's go find that task here. Task 3000 must be this one right here. You'll see that it's currently set to false. And we can go through and get documents here to get a refresh just to make sure that that didn't happen. You'll see here, it's still set to false. Now, what should happen is I'm going to click this little button here to put us back online. The second I go online, 2 things should happen. 1, our text that we changed should dynamically update. And then 2, this document should update to be completed. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. You'll see here, the task almost instantaneously went back to 5000. We'll see here, if we were to get this new version of these documents, and we take a look at that last document, we'll see that it is completed as true, which means that once the app came back online, we went through and were able to complete it. I'm gonna log back off real quick here and show that if I go back to demo1 user, I'll have the original demo1 user tasks. And if I wanted to see demo2's task, I can now go through and see that. And you'll see that the mine is telling you which ones are yours versus the other users and, that are using the application tasks. This also means if I were to go back here once again and change this to maybe task 101 and click complete, that is completely legal. And I can go change my filter now to see that. So I'm going to go through and change this demo1 at example.com. And we'll go through. I don't remember which one of these is it, but there it is, and it's changed to 101. And once again, if I were to go through and filter these out and show the other tasks that aren't mine, I can't go through and change these because the UI doesn't let me, and that's the code from the original application. I didn't change any of the UI in this, and that's just how it works, is that you can't change any item that you don't own. So with this, we went through and demoed the application. We showed off that for each user, it has its own database. And when we go through and interact with the application, it syncs information dynamically over to Couchbase Capella. I want to thank you for your time of going through the demo with me. In the next video, which is going to be in the video description here, we're going to do a code review of the code that was changed in order to make this work with Couchbase Capella. Appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great day.